G'day guys, and welcome back to the Life Outside podcast. My name is Cam Bostock and I'm very excited to be talking to Elina Osborne today. Elina is a veteran thru-hiker and adventure filmmaker, having produced YouTube documentaries on trails like Araroa and the Pacific Crest, which many of you have probably seen and been inspired by. She recently finished up a year living in Japan by thru-hiking the Michinoku Coastal Trail in the northeast of the country, which was really cool, and we chatted about it all in this episode. Before we get into it, could you guys do me a favor and leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Helps the show out a ton, and very excited to try and reach as many people as possible in 2026. Thank you for all your support, guys, and thanks for listening, and hope you enjoy this episode. G'day, Elina. Welcome to the show. It's very, very, very good to have you. Kia ora. Coming to us from Auckland. Yeah, very good to see you as well. I feel like this has been a long time coming. We've actually had quite a lot of requests to get Elina Osborne onto the show, so we've made it happen.
Is that true?
It's very true, and
wow.
We're going to give the people what they want. I've been waiting a little while to reach out because you've been recently hiking the Michinoku Coastal Trail in Japan, and I honestly have never seen anyone hike that trail, and actually share the journey in any capacity online. So it was cool to see that, and super keen to dive into your experience there a little bit. But we have a lot of trails in common, which is exciting. We both PCT, both Te Araroa, and I feel like we could talk for about 68 hours about our thru-hiking experiences. But yeah, good to have you, mate.
Yeah, no, this is so true. The shared trails. Yeah, good to be here. Good to see your face again. I mean, last time we saw each other, I met you for the first time in real life, PCT Days 2024, was it?
2024, yeah.
That's crazy. So I guess like a year and a half ago. Yeah.
It's crazy that it was that long ago. That was very cool to meet in person, like on the PCT, because you had come over to, I don't know, relive your PCT experience a little bit. You had a wedding and some other stuff, I think. But,
I was doing a bunch of things. I feel like I've always got a wedding, but yeah, I was bopping around, and I was like, I need to touch that trail one more time.
Yeah.
It won't be the last time, but it was good to be around.
For sure. It was interesting because, like, I remember when you posted on socials or Instagram that you were going to come over to PCT Days, there was like a bit of a buzz on the trail. People were like, Elina's going to be at PCT Days. Like,
that
you
is
have
wild to me.
You have a reputation that precedes you, I think, specifically for the Pacific Crest Trail, as someone who's inspired a lot of people to get out onto the trail. And yeah, it's a weird feeling, I'm sure, for you when you get all these people coming up to you at PCT Days. You're a bit of a celebrity there, and it was just a real honor for Dan, Emma, and I to meet you then as well and have a chat. So we'll I'm sure cross paths again in real life, but that was pretty special.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure you share the same sentiment of just like being super humbled by those experiences, because at the end of the day, you're all hikers, but somehow the story that you share reaches people, and it's exciting that also gets people outside, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the mission, get people outside as much as possible. I mean, better than anyone, the profound impact that thru-hiking specifically, but just getting outside in general can have on a person. And, I just want more people to experience that. Big reason why this podcast exists as well. And you've done a lot to get a lot of people outside. Your PCT documentary and the series you released after you finished the trail was one of the inspirations for me, for sure. I rewatched it as the people yesterday, just in prep for this, and there's not many videos on YouTube that give me full body chills, but that one does it. And it's it's a pretty special story. It's like a 16-minute film as well. It's like so short, and it just hits every feel. It's pretty amazing.
So
what's
sweet.
what's it like looking back on that film and that experience? It's 6 years removed from it now.
God, yeah, it is coming up 6 years.
That was your first, super long trail. I know you've done quite a bit of hiking prior to the PCT, but stepping out onto over 4,000 kilometer trek and setting out to document in the way you did, Yeah, what's it like looking back so far removed from it?
I feel like it feels like a completely different world in a lot of ways. Like, you look back and you're a completely different version. I don't know how we capture our experiences has changed as well. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it was truly the inception point of my through hiking journey. I don't know if you felt this way, but when I started out on the PCT, I was kind of like, this is a once in a lifetime thing. I'm going to do this trail once, or I'm going to have this kind of experience, and then I'm going to continue going back to my regular life. But you quickly realize that you can never return to that way of thinking, of living a quote unquote regular life. And so I think, yeah, I just didn't expect. When I look back, it's kind of like, wow, you really didn't understand that your life would completely shift in ways that you couldn't have predicted. Because I think you're also told by others, your life will change, but you can't imagine how. And I feel like only 6 years later, 6 years, 6 years
Yeah.
later, I'm coming to understand that I've begun to truly release the idea that I need my life to look a certain way. I feel like whenever I return from a through hike, I've always felt some kind of pressure to, okay, get your life together to make it look normal or feel normal in the way that people perceive normal lives to look. But it's only, yeah, 6 years. It took me 6 years to really release those ideas and understand that we are all on our own journeys, and we can make our lives look any way we want them to. So yeah, but yeah, it is always
Yeah.
crazy looking back. You're like, oh my god, little baby.
Mm,
She had no
yeah.
idea.
Yeah. You look so young at the beginning of the
Yeah,
film. It's
I know.
crazy.
Also, like my hair, I cropped my hair and I had like this little backpack. And I remember one of the guys I met was just like, "You're like Dora," because I had a little like 40 liter pack and a haircut that was very much like a Dora the Explorer cut. So yeah, little baby.
I wrote down one of the quotes from It Is the People that you said, which is, "We weren't there to find ourselves, we were there to create ourselves." And that just, when I was thinking back to my PCT experience, I was like, that's so true. I didn't go onto that trail looking to find something about myself. But what I realized in hindsight is that, like, I created a new version of myself that sees the world differently, wants to experience different things. And I think it's just such a powerful quote. And I think a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people do go out there to find something, or search for a specific thing. But I think the power of through hiking is just going out there and letting the experience kind of happen to you, and then this new version just emerges of yourself. And that's certainly what happened for me on the PCT. The PCT wasn't my first through hike. We kind of did our two long trails in opposite orders, but the PCT was a different experience for me because it was more of a social experience. It was the people for me as well. And this new version that came out, after reaching the northern terminus, was radically different to the one that started, which, was the biggest blessing ever.
Yeah, I think it was this whole thing around almost changing the narrative because I feel like there is this perception that people who are going out for long through hikes, and it's, there's a lot of truth to it that we are all searching for something. There's something we kind of like feel like is missing, and we want to, or we're in a kind of transitioning period of our lives. Um, but there is the other side, and you can like shift that perspective, shift that narrative, and
Mm,
thinking, maybe I'm not this broken, lost person, maybe, or who like needs to patch something up, but I'm also someone who just wants to add something else to my life. And I think that can be really empowering for people who maybe fear what how they'll be perceived by their peers who are not doing
hmm
through hikes, because I feel like even 6 years ago, back in my day, I mean it's not that long ago, but like I feel like, yeah, the narrative around through hiking has changed
hmm
dramatically. People, I think it used to be heavily perceived as people who were completely broken. But I think now when somebody announces they're going to do a through hike, it's like, hell yeah, you are doing something badass, not because there's something wrong with you, but because you want to add something to your life.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that shift as well. I mean, even for me, even from the start, thru hiking has always been about like the adventure and the challenge of it. And I've just like had all these profound experiences in my, on the trail as I went that I wasn't expecting. But it's interesting looking at the shift in how people hike and the reasons people hike over time. I mean, people were hiking the PCT 30 years ago, and the experience back then is nothing like it is today, which is it's
Mm.
always just fun to sort of think about. Yeah,
Yep, yep, it's completely different. But yeah,
yeah,
it's
just
very cool to
those
see more people get out there.
absolutely. Just looking back at those old pictures of through hikers in the 90s or whatever, biggest backpacks wearing jeans and no fire out, no internet, nothing like that. It's I think inherently there's just different motivations because of those things as well.
Yeah, that's true. We are, and we're so lucky because of those technological advancements. But it's definitely changed the culture of through hiking too, which is also this beautiful thing in finding other trails in other places that present maybe what the PCT had once symbolized or had
Mm,
meant if you're looking for a different kind of experience. But yeah, what a
yeah.
glorious trail. I could talk about this trail for forever, you know.
What were the life circumstances that led to you setting foot at the southern terminus of the PCT? It's such a huge endeavor, and you're from New Zealand. That's a very long way away. Where did you hear about the trail? What sort of motivated you to set out on this journey?
I feel like the factor of coming from New Zealand didn't intimidate me so much. I think because I had lived in the US for 14 months,
Okay.
um, from 2016 to beginning of 2018. And I fell in love with the US and the outdoor, the national parks. It really opened my eyes to how different each state was, how incredible the people were, how open people were, especially in, I guess, the spaces I was in. And I guess it's hard because I feel like you can easily rewrite how you got to that point. But I read Wild, I guess when I was 17, classic.
Okay.
But I remember reading it and thinking, that a very broken person had to hike this trail, that I wouldn't get to that place in my life. That also it was such a crazy endeavor to be able to take that much time to go do that kind of hike. Um, but then I guess for me, the circumstances were that I had come back from the US after that time. I really wanted to go back. And I had been in a long distance relationship with a guy in New Zealand. I returned to New Zealand for love. That
Okay.
love was not to be. So things ended. And in a very devastating way, you get your heart ripped in shreds and you're like, okay, gotta repair. And I
Go to
think
the trail.
I think I talked with him about doing the PCT together at some point. I feel like that seed was planted somewhere. So the idea of doing it was there. And then once we'd ended things, I completed my laundry list of quarter life crisis, of course. So like I dyed my hair blonde. I got my motorbike license. What else? I was like, okay, PCT
Did
is
it
on that
all.
list. Yes. And yeah, that was an aspect. But then I guess like another aspect was that my mum had been diagnosed with blood cancer in 20, I think it was 2017 or 2016, but it was a kind of like, it was a low lying kind of long term cancer that they say is incurable, but you can kind of live with for a while. But even that kind of diagnosis, I think that kind of also was another factor. And this reminder that, life is so fleeting, life is short. And when we're healthy, when we have healthy bodies, healthy minds, it's important to go do the things that, call to us and,
Mhm.
evoke some kind of feeling of joy. And so I just, yeah, went for it, and
Mm.
yeah, didn't look back.
Didn't look back. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people, myself included, almost need that tragedy or that thing in life that you know isn't exactly what you want to happen to you to gain that perspective to step out and actually do the things that you want to do. And
Mm.
I think for so many people, that's their story is, something happened, there was a breakup or a family member passed away. Or for me, it was during COVID that I first ever stepped out and started hiking and chasing what I really wanted to do, which is now my career. And I don't think I would have ever done it if like that didn't happen and, life got turned upside down in 2019, 2020. So, it's almost like in the moment, it's like, this sucks. But then in hindsight, like, I'm so grateful that those things did happen, because it really just set me on the path that I'm on. And, no doubt you look back and those things that happened in 2018, 2019 or whatever set you onto this path. And it's like, actually kind of grateful in a way for some of the stuff.
What was it about COVID that kind of shifted your mindset where you were like, I need to go do a trail?
Well, it was more that just life got turned upside down. Like, so my wife and I were living in Tokyo at the time, and we had been there for
What? Wait, I
almost a
feel like I
year.
know that. Yeah, I feel like I knew this, but I forgot.
I don't know if we've chatted about that, but it's probably another thing we
Okay.
have in common. We're both, you're half Japanese, right? And you've just
Mm.
recently spent quite a lot of time in Japan. But yeah, we were living in Tokyo for about a year. And then in March 2020, COVID kind of hit Japan slightly before it hit Australia. And so we were, you know, we had our apartment, we had our jobs, we had life set up there. It was incredible. My wife was studying at a language school. And then, we just had to basically come home, and we weren't sure for how long. We kept our lease in our apartment and kept all our stuff there. And, 2 weeks turned into 2 months, turned into 2 years, and we never went back. So it was like crazy. We lost our jobs. We lost, Karis lost studies and our whole life, all our friends and
Yeah.
community there. So it was when I came back that, I mean, in Japan, I really started getting into hiking. It's, as you know, it's just endless mountains and so much natural
Mm.
beauty and just ridiculous amount of trail that's just so unexplored by Western humans. But
Mm-hmm.
I fell in love with it there. And so when I came back and I had no job and I was like, what am I going to do? I'm like, well, maybe I'll try hiking more. And um, I'd seen other people hike and make a living off it. So I'm like, maybe I'll try that. And I'd probably watched your stuff at that point as well. And yeah, just went for it. So it was kind of that whole situation, which in the moment was so stressful, coming home and quarantining. And then 8 months later, we had to get some of our friends in Tokyo to pack up our house and ship boxes to us. And it was a nightmare. But I look back on it all like, oh my gosh, I'm grateful that happened, actually, because I would not be doing what I'm doing now if it didn't. And yeah, we went back to Japan last year. It's not 2025 anymore. For the first time since we left due to COVID, and it was pretty special to spend another month there exploring again, and went back to our old apartment and stuff. But yeah, crazy times, definitely.
That is wild. I had no idea. I have so many questions. Were you teaching, and where in Tokyo were you living? I mean, I'm just so curious. But it also, wait, on that, it also speaks to that kind of feeling of grief, right? Where there is some kind of loss. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
great reason.
yeah. Loss it can inspire. Loss can inspire. It's an interesting thing. We
Mm.
lived out in West Tokyo near Tachikawa.
Mm.
It's kind of like no white people in that neighborhood, which was awesome. Very local.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke no Japanese, still don't. So it was interesting. Karis was my translator, or I just use hand gestures down at the local supermarket.
Yeah.
But it was kind of nice because it was easy to get out to the mountains via train from there and out of the hustle and bustle of the city center. And yeah, I was working in like it was a business called Spoglish. It was this like it's like this gym for kids where we taught sport and played games and taught English at the same time. So classic expat job, but I loved it. It was good fun. And Karis worked in a cafe and studied full time, and I just was out in the mountains when I wasn't working. It was awesome. We did not want to leave, but life had other plans, unfortunately.
Wow, I can see you two there. That's crazy. What a different world, different timeline. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right in saying that the mountains out there are incredible, and the access, obviously, with the trains is just superb.
Hmm.
I really found a group of trail runners out there and bonded through, being able to just get to the mountains super easily. Just doing last
Yeah.
minute fast packing trips up in the Kita Alps. I don't know if you spent much time in the Northern Alps, but
No,
they
I've
are,
never been to the Northern Alps.
oh
Yeah.
my God, they
This
are
year, this year it's happening.
incredible. Okay,
Hmm.
good. Yeah, there are beautiful loops you can do, but even getting up to Yarigatake is
Yes.
just like stunning. I did one fast packing trip with a buddy, very last minute planned. We got on the last train Friday night from Tokyo and got to the base of the trail. So we get to this local stop. We take a taxi to the trailhead. We start running at 1 a.m., no sleep.
Wow.
And I think we
I
ran all
love
the
it.
way up to the base of Yari and then camped overnight. And then the next morning for sunrise, summited Yari around all the others who were there to see the sunrise. It's like one of those bucket list items for a lot of Japanese hikers. And then just ran down the mountain. And it's just like super accessible, super easy to do in Japan. You're like,
Yeah.
nowhere else you could actually do this. But I had
Yeah.
some,
It's,
yeah, pretty fun micro adventures like that.
yeah. When I lived there, it was the same, just the ability to take a train off one of the main lines in the city and then go out to a local line in the mountains. And there's trains to every little town. And I would just go into the like library or the, whatever bookstore and buy just a big map of the Tokyo prefecture mountain ranges. And I just like say, I want to go from here to there. I'd draw a little line and then I'd take the train out to whatever local stop was closest and spend the whole day out there just exploring. And it was so special. But I wasn't really a multi-day hiker in 2019, 2020 when I was in Japan. So it was all just day trips, epic day trips. But this year when we went, 2025, when we went back, 6 months ago, we did a couple of multi-days, including the Kamanakota south of Osaka, which was awesome. And yeah,
Mm,
we're going to go back this year, I think, and do some stuff in the Northern Alps and some more trips like that because it's so underrated. Like obviously, people think of Japan, they think of the cities, they think of the food, the culture, the skiing, but hiking is probably not very high on people's list, and it's so good. It's so good in every
yeah,
season as well. There's something in every season. It's amazing. Yeah.
I completely agree. It's so underrated, especially if you are going to Japan for the culture, to experience the mountain culture.
Hmm.
You experience the beauty of the landscapes, and then you get to experience incredible food as well as onsen. Just
Yeah.
completely,
It's like nowhere else in the
completely
world.
unrivaled. Yeah.
Hmm.
I already missed the onsen. That was one of my favorite things about it. Also food, also people, all of the things. But yeah, it's just very, very special place for yeah, hiking and being outside.
Yeah. I want to hear a bit about your Michinoku Coastal Trail. Before that, while we're on the topic of 2019, 2020, and COVID, that's the sort of period where you walk Te Araroa, which is the through hike that crosses your home country. Um, it's so interesting to me that you went across to the US first to do the PCT before walking this trail that's literally would probably walk through your neighborhood or close to it. And
Precisely.
it makes sense now because you lived in the US for a bit and obviously like you had that pool there. But was it sort of because of COVID and there wasn't many people around that you decided to step out onto Tiaro, or what was the reason you decided like this is my next hike?
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny because Te Araroa never called to me. It just didn't really appeal to me. Maybe because I knew a lot of the sections and I just felt like, it's here. It'll be here
Hmm.
for the rest of time. I had a
Yeah.
friend who'd done it and he'd talked about it, but I was still like, it doesn't really call to me. And I think it wasn't until, yeah, I experienced, I guess as well, like trails. The reason I wanted to do trails was to be in a completely new environment. And of course, meet people from all over. And I think that's why the PCT initially really called to me.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And then through hiking the PCT, people learn you're from New Zealand and they're like, oh, what about Te Araroa? What about TA? Have you hiked it? And I just feel like, no, it doesn't excite me. And I felt kind of like um, I was doing a disservice to my country. Like I couldn't
Yeah, you've got to
say I was even,
represent.
I know, I was like, I couldn't even say I was from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Like I was like, okay, I feel like I have to do this trail. Just if I want to do more international
Hmm.
trails, I feel like it's important for me to understand more of my own country. even though I'd done shorter hikes, I hadn't done a huge amount of hiking, but I'd done some shorter hikes and a couple of multi days in New Zealand. And then I guess it was kind of like the timing has to feel right. And then COVID happened, and I felt like my innate feeling was if I don't do it now, I don't think I will ever prioritize it because I'll always,
Mm,
I think, especially in my 20s, because I've now hit 30, like, especially in my 20s, I was kind of like, I just want to leave New Zealand. I think that's just like a really normal feeling. You want to leave the country you grew up in, especially when you live in a little island nation, away from
yeah.
feeling like you're isolated from the rest of the world. You just want to explore other places. So I'd always had this feeling of wanting to leave. So I felt like, okay, I have no option. I literally cannot leave the country. So I think I need to make the priority, make
Mm,
hiking Te Araroa my priority. And I'm so glad I did. I am so grateful that I had that time to be able to do it. We had our lockdowns like a year delayed, but so we were free to travel and hike, and I could do that trail and really appreciate, and understand more of the country in which I grew up in beyond just, I guess, Auckland, the area that I have lived in every time been living in New Zealand. And yeah, meet a lot of, it was an interesting mix though, because obviously a lot of international hikers can come, and usually it's a bigger
yeah.
mix of international hikers. So it was a lot of Kiwis, and I had my little band of brothers who I've kept in touch with sporadically, and I'm grateful for that time. It's similar to you, right? Where it's kind of like you take that situation of COVID and you kind of make the best of what you can with it.
Yeah.
And that was Te Araroa for me.
Yeah, it's an incredible trail. I've been really enjoying because it's TA season right now, watching people traverse the country and experience all those things that I experienced a couple of years back. And yeah, it was funny. I set foot. I went northbound, so I didn't do it the normal way. But I just
Mm.
remember sitting in my tent at night, the first couple of nights on the trail. I had downloaded your TA series, and I was just watching them as I started the trail. I didn't do it beforehand. I didn't prep at all, but I just kind of like used it as inspiration while I was on the trail, and it was yeah, it was very cool. I just remember seeing all
Oh,
these
that's
places in the
funny.
north that you started with, and you're like, I'm going to be there eventually. Yeah, it would be a different experience, just like all being Kiwis. Because when I did TA, I mean, I was alone for a lot of it, but it was very multicultural. And this year, just from afar, it looks like there's people from all over the world. It's just growing in popularity, and that's most long trail experiences. It's just like, and one of the best parts is you get to see people from sort of everywhere, but you've almost had this really unique experience that hopefully it never happens again, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. It was a very, very quiet season. And yeah, it is definitely so much more popular. Like my flight home, my flight back to New Zealand from Japan, on Christmas Eve, I saw two people, and I was kind of like, "Oh, are you guys gonna hike in New Zealand?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're hiking TA." And I was like, "No way!"
Wow.
So we're on the same flight, and I was able to have good chats with them and have breakfast, have Christmas morning breakfast with them when they came into the country. But they were also, yeah, from the US, and I was like, "Ah, this is so cool to
Yeah.
see hikers out and about."
It's like a sense of pride when people come from other countries to come visit yours and do your local through hike. And even my local through hike, which is the Bibbulmun track, it's like a third of the distance of the TA, and definitely not as beautiful. But I was on trail this past season, and I met people from, like, I think I counted, it was like 18 or 19 different countries. I was like, you come here to walk my local trail? Like, this is the coolest thing in the world. And it's like what you were saying earlier with, like, in your 20s, you just wanted to leave the country. But I think the more you travel, the more you realize how amazing where you're from is. And I mean, like, New Zealand is, the most beautiful place on planet Earth. And so, and then same fear for Western Australia. It's like just so stunning and so diverse and incredible. And whenever I'm away, I'm like, oh, I actually have it pretty good back home. It's pretty cool. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see just through hiking in general rise in popularity. I remember when I first walked the Bibbulmun track in 2021, which is when we just came back from Japan, there was pretty much just Aussies. There were a couple of internationals, and these days it's just people coming from all over to hike it. And I think it's just a general trend. More people getting outside and doing long trails. And I think social media has its negatives, but showcasing being outside and the benefits that it brings is one of the big positives. So it just becomes more accessible for more and more people, I think.
Yeah, and the power in building, community as well, and platforming voices who haven't been out there or represented in the past. But yeah, no, it is very cool to see the mix, and yeah, the beauty of perspective, right? Of yeah, being able to leave your home country or see it through the eyes of somebody who hasn't,
Yeah.
is not from there is always super exciting.
What was your favorite part of Te Araroa? You said you had explored sections of it before, but obviously a lot of it you would have just never seen, which is just like it's such a cool way to explore your own country, to walk literally the length of it. What were some of the highlights for you?
Yeah, I really truly I loved the Wanganui River. Like I loved that experience because for a lot of the North Island you have service, you have internet service. I think that was the first and only section in the North
Mm,
Island where you're completely isolated. You're just in this little bubble with your buddies, paddling down the river. And there's something about, I guess, the reverence of that river as well. It was the first river to be granted legal personhood. So there's such a reverence for that area, and it feels so special and so connected to the local iwi, and just, I don't know, I think that respect for it comes through and you feel it when you're paddling. So I really love that section. And the South Island is, of course, beautiful. Like, just, yeah, it's what, I can't think of the word, but it's just, I guess, objectively just a beautiful
yeah.
beautiful sections. I really love the Richmonds. I'd like to do them again. Had food poisoning when I did it, but they were beautiful. Nelson Lake section, of course. Lake Angeles is always a stunner. But yeah, it's been a hot minute. It's been a hot minute, but there are some just. Anytime I feel like as well, you can see bodies of water is it always makes me feel so grounded.
Hmm.
Whether that's a lake or the ocean, but yeah, would
Yeah,
love
it's
to go back.
yeah, it's just beautiful through and through. I think for me, the Wanganui was probably the highlight as well. It was so beautiful. I don't know if I've ever seen a trek section of trail that's more beautiful. I think I was pretty lucky that when I went through, there was an incredible amount of rain the week prior, and then it cleared, and we were
Mm.
able to get on the river. So for one, the river was flowing fast and hard, and it was very easy paddling. But then there was just all the waterfalls everywhere flowing into the river, and it was so green, and it just felt like I was in like a fantasy movie the entire time. I Yeah, I loved it. I loved that. And like you said, you're disconnected for the first time, yeah, in a while in the North Island because there's so many towns and roads and stuff like that. And you're just like out there. And because I walked northbound, I was solo for it all. And the Wanganui was one of the very few times on TA that I was with people that were also on TA. So I had this group of four that we were all paddling together, and it was so special. It was really, really good.
Yeah, I was wondering if you found a little group to go down with. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's. I just remember just the banks of the river just kind of towering up above you, and you're looking around,
Yeah.
and you're just paddling down. Like, man, I feel like we could be anywhere, in the world, or just anything could be happening out there, but we
Yeah.
would have no idea, no concept. It also reminds me of uh the book, Tomorrow When the War Began, where they're kind of just completely isolated from the world. I don't know if you've
Hmm.
read it, but
I haven't. No.
yeah, it's actually an Aussie author. But yeah, I think it just gave me that kind of feeling where you feel so far removed from everything,
Yeah.
especially because you know that you're in this little island nation corner of the world. So you're like, man, we are way out.
It is the best. It's the best part of hiking, especially in this sort of digital age, is just being forcefully disconnected from everything to the point where you can't contact anyone. Notifications don't exist. It's all just gone, and you just we don't get to experience that enough. in regular life because like we don't choose to. Like we could just turn our phones off, but it just doesn't happen. And heading out into the wild and just being there and all of that sort of, you know, online world just falling away, it gives you this new feeling. I feel like a lot of people just have never had that feeling, which is crazy. But through hiking is so good for that because you can spend so much time in the wild.
Mm, yeah, I completely agree. We're so overstimulated and
Yeah,
rely on it a lot for dopamine. And I think when I head out on Michinoku, it's interesting you bring that up because I knew I would have a lot of access to the internet, and I think for when I went out on this next trail, I set myself these rules, which were like no scrolling, delete Instagram, but download it when I needed to post because I did need to post, and no music, no podcast, no input like that,
wow,
um, because I think it is very rare, like you said, to be in a space where you don't just have all of that input. So to give yourself a kind of a reset with through hiking or just being intentional, I feel like you can do it in
absolutely.
harder to do in regular life, but to be to give yourself a period of time where you're like, I'm going to, not take all of this in, I think is so helpful for like the world we live in.
I realized when I'm out hiking that in regular life, I just never have time to think or like think deeply. I'm always so stimulated and things are just always happening. And when I'm out there in the bush for 5, 10 days, that is always the time where I come back with so many incredible ideas and so many plans for the future. And, I have so many things I want to say to so many people because I've actually had time to just like be with my own thoughts, which it just doesn't seem to happen. There's always something going on when you're in the city and you're working and life's happening and there's so much access to, like you said, easy dopamine and stimulation. And I just, I crave it. Like, I feel like I crave it now, actually having that off switch and heading out. And I have to go, I have to go out every few weeks. I find it really hard to just switch everything off when I am home. I don't know. It's probably a self-control issue, but just yeah, it's just so powerful. And that's there's so many benefits to being outside and doing these things, but that's a big one, I think, in this today's age, especially for younger generations, is to actually just switch off for possibly the first time in many people's lives. And it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's crazy what can happen when you do that. Yeah,
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like, I mean, it's like you operate on autopilot, when you're in your regular life. So when
totally.
you do take
Yep.
yourself out, you're giving yourself that permission to kind of step back and reassess and
Hmm.
contemplate life. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny when I was on this most recent trail, it was some friends don't like it, some friends do, but I was sending some voice memos or like little personal podcasts. I know it's can be a controversial thing for some friends, but it was such a good excuse to kind of catch up with people as well that I'd maybe not contacted in a while or just wanted to reconnect with. And
Hmm.
yeah, you don't often have that space for that because you're just like,
Yeah.
I've got so much other things, so many other things to do.
Yeah. Do you usually listen to like music podcasts on trail? Was this like a first for you, switching off from all that?
Uh, so on PCT, I listen to a lot of music, I think, especially when you're like going through big days. Tiararo, I listen to a little bit here and there. Hey Duke, I actually didn't listen to anything, but that was a little bit different because I was in a group scenario where we were sticking together the whole time. And the few times that we put on music, it was kind of just like um, evening ambient music for journaling.
Hmm.
And so I didn't really listen to music then, but again, different scenario. But I feel like in the past, if I was by myself and I was kind of like, I need something to, stimulate me, I would rely on music or podcasts or audiobooks. So yeah, very much decided I didn't want that kind of distraction. And
Hmm.
I just wanted to be very present with where I was because it's very easy to just block out. Or you're less attentive. You maybe will miss a sound or something that, a thought that pulls you to look in a direction, or it means that maybe if you're listening to something and you walk past someone, instead of stopping and engaging in some kind of conversation, maybe
Yeah.
you'll just say hello and keep walking. So yeah, I just really wanted to be very, very present with where I was. I also kind of I drew a bit of inspiration. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name is Craig Modd. He has written a couple of books. He wrote this book called Things Become Other Things, and it deeply inspired me in a lot of ways. The book itself is really beautiful. It's kind of a letter to a friend who had passed away. So it's kind of, but he's also walking through Japan. So he's kind of detailing his
Oh, wow.
experiences of this trail he's doing in Japan, as well as relaying his kind of life story a little bit. But I was reading, and he's done a bunch of kind of trails in Japan, and I was inspired because he wrote kind of these rules for himself when he does these through hike or does these trails. He does more, not wilderness trails, but more like Nakasendo or like the kind of pilgrimage style trails. But yeah, he would write these rules for himself, and he had this one where it was like no input, and I was like, hey, that actually makes a lot of sense, and I
Yeah.
will take that and write my own kind of rules. So I made myself like my daily commandments to follow, just to kind of keep myself in check, and yeah, be very intentional with the trail, because yeah, it was a very different kind of trail. It wasn't a complete wilderness trail. So it meant I had a lot more, I think, room to contemplate things and engage with locals. And
Hmm.
you don't often, like, you don't get that as much maybe on a complete wilderness. Like, you certainly don't get that on the PCT unless you're in, town.
In the town,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so different kind of trail, which meant different kind of intention, different kind of mindset heading in.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. This episode of the Life Outside podcast is proudly brought to you by OptiVenture, the world's first all-in-one supplement specifically designed for outdoor adventurers. It's been my favorite health, performance, and recovery tool for the last couple of years, both in training and while on trail. It's super simple. Just take 3 sunrise capsules each morning for sustained energy and to help optimize gut health, immunity, and mental clarity, and then take 3 sunset capsules at night to help sleep more deeply, recover more efficiently, and keep inflammation low. I've used it on long trails like the Pacific Crest, as well as on my Bibbleman track, fastest known time completion. And I also just use it in my daily life as it replaces more than 10 individual supplements. It's simple, comprehensive, and built for my adventurous lifestyle. If you want the easiest, most effective way to stay healthy, perform well, and recover faster both on and off the trail, I can't recommend it enough. Head to optiventure.co and use Life Outside for 10% off your order. All right, let's get back into today's episode. Tell us a bit about the Michinoku Coastal Trail, because I feel like a lot of listeners probably no idea what that is, where it is.
Yeah.
What's the history of the track, or how far is it? Where is it?
Yeah, so it's a 1,000-kilometer trail in the northeastern region of Japan in Tohoku. It goes through Fukushima, Miyagi, Iwate, and Aomori prefectures. So it goes through 4 prefectures. It was founded after the 2011 tsunami and, well, earthquake, then tsunami that occurred in March of that year. I don't know if you've seen or much footage, but if it, if you have seen photos or images, you can see the complete devastation of that region. Complete
Mm-hmm.
towns are just swept away. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but a lot of people, lost their lives. A lot of people lost their homes. It was a complete rebuild effort. And so to kind of breathe new life into this area and get people kind of excited about walking through this region, they created this trail to kind of, I guess, incentivize people to explore more of the land, and also, I guess, experience more of the culture and the people, and I guess bring new faces to this area. So the trail was born, I don't know the exact year, but I guess a couple years after 2011. Yeah, and this completely, I feel like, untouched area of Japan. you know, again, most people travel to, especially on their first visits, will predominantly go to Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, um, when they visit Japan. But there are these areas that feel far less explored, far more maybe connected or steeped in history, and maybe a Japan of old, quote unquote, just with, I don't know, people who live much slower lives,
Mm.
much more connected to the land. And something I noticed along the way was just how everybody had gardens, everybody was growing something, and everybody was drying their kaki, their persimmon, out the windows. I was hiking
Hmm.
in the beginning of winter, so obviously, depending on when you walk, is what vegetables and fruit you're going to see. But man, just a completely beautiful region of Japan.
Yeah, I haven't explored much up there at all, but yeah, like you just brought me back to hiking in the mountains of Japan. You find these little villages, and there's just people growing their field on terraces, and they've got their little home gardens, and they're just living a very simple, very happy, peaceful life, and it's super inspiring. And it's like it always helps you because you're out there to disconnect, and then you kind of get this different perspective of life. And especially like when we're living in Tokyo, the difference between Tokyo and then out in the mountains and these tiny villages with like 50 people living there, it was quite an extreme difference, and very very cool to see. What motivated you to hike the Michinoku Coastal Trail over maybe some of the other long trails in Japan? There's some long pilgrimages and other routes that you probably could have chosen. And I know you've done a lot of
Mm.
hiking, so maybe you've done some of those before. But what about that trail kind of drew you in?
Well, it's funny because this trail, immediately when I came home from the PCT, end of 2019, I was like, okay, the next long trail I'll do will be Japan because it has to be. Like I
Mm,
feel like I want to connect more to my heritage. I had never lived in Japan, I'd never spent more than 2 weeks there. My mum left when she was 22 and never lived there again. So, and I never learnt the language. All I knew was kind of like the food that my mum would cook.
yeah.
That was kind of my, yeah, I guess the extent of my connection with Japan, including my family there. And so I just felt this deep sense of wanting to hike a Japanese trail. And then when I Googled what long trails there were, I guess I wanted one that was longer. I did end up hiking the Kumano as well in 2021, but I wanted a trail that was longer. And when I saw the Michinoku Trail and I saw like the coastal element of it, and I saw
Mm,
this kind of, I think the story of it is what really drew me in. It just, this whole aspect of rebuilding through grief. All these people have lost so much, and this trail has breathed, yeah, new life into this region, and shown that you can really rebuild and rewrite and restore through something like a long trail. And that kind of story really drew me in. And then I saw this website with this is a kind of a random side note, but this guy had written an English website, which is kind of hard to come by a lot of the times.
yeah,
So there's a lot of
totally.
good resources. His name is Robin Lewis, and I ended up connecting with him online and was like, hey man, I really want to hike this trail. Can you tell me all about it? Turns out he's half British, half Japanese. So we had the little halfy connection. And yeah, through him, I was able to learn more about the trail. Random side note is that I ended up living like 5 minutes around the corner from him. We ended up living in the same neighborhood in Japan when I moved there.
Wow.
So I would bike to his house sometimes and say hi to his wife and his baby. And we'd yap about plans or go for a little runs together. But yeah, that also helped, have somebody directly tell me about the trail. But I think back to what you're saying or what you were asking is just the story of the trail is what really drew me in. And then I think it was 2024. I don't know if you've ever heard, they're actually behind me. See those little red dolls? They're called Daruma. And
Mm,
you color, when you get one or receive one, you color in one eye to set a goal.
okay, I
And
haven't heard this before.
when you've achieved that goal, you color in the other eye, and it kind of symbolizes like you've made it, or you've accomplished that thing. And in January 2024, I colored in. I need to color in the other eye actually, but I colored in one eye of the Daruma, and I was like, okay, this is for the goal is to hike the Michinoku Trail. And yeah, so it feels like it's been a long time coming, but yeah, sorry, long-winded, but
No, that's awesome.
story.
Yeah, I had no idea about the origin of it. There's been quite a few devastating events in Japan, and the things that sort of sprout up from them can be quite beautiful. We spent a bit of time in Hiroshima last time we were in Japan, and just seeing the community and the love that sort of came from what happened in the early 1900s was so powerful. Went to the Peace Memorial Museum and stuff like that, and it was very, yeah, very profound and kind of cool. Yeah. So the Michinoku Trail, you did it solo, right? You were hiking alone for the most part, and I know you had a lot of experiences with locals and with people, and staying in homes of people that you just met that day, and that kind of stuff. It was super cool to follow along because, yeah, it's just very, very different to other through hikes, I guess. The culture there's different, and the landscapes there are different. And yeah, what was it like, doing this sort of solo adventure? You know, I think a lot of your other
Yeah.
trails, you've had trail families, right? So it is a different experience.
Yeah, completely different trail. I think it's easy to get into the mindset, especially once you've done a couple of wilderness trails, to feel like, okay, I need to make this trail as hard as possible. The reality is, for the Michinoku, like, you can make it pretty easy for yourself. You can stay in ryokan, minshuku, so like local inns. You can stay in hotels. You can stay. Anyway, there are a lot of options for accommodation. And so that's one aspect. But the element of being a solo hiker is very true. Like, I hiked in the end of the season, there were not many other hikers. I kind of knew on the outset that I would not form a trail family, nor is it very common because the trail is not so popular yet. Hopefully yet. Yeah, I hope more people go. But yeah, it's not so popular where you are likely to form a trail family unless you set out with people. And I guess I didn't really grasp that until I was out there. What I truly know about myself is that although I really need and appreciate alone time, I also just love yapping. I love people. I love being around others. So I kind of took it upon myself. And because I guess I did understand this actually, to backtrack a little, I did understand that I would have a lot of alone time. So what I
Hmm.
really wanted to do was engage with as many locals as I could. And I also knew that, Tohoku region is, I mean, Japan itself is an aging population, but specifically in inaka and countryside areas, it's very, like, the median age is, I don't know, it's got to be 70 plus or something. I mean, there are some young
Mm.
people, but there are a lot of old people. But, with age comes wisdom. And I just wanted to engage with these oji-san, oba-chan, these grandmas and grandpas as much as I could, and kind of, when felt suitable, or like I could talk to them in this kind of way, ask them questions about their life and what they felt made a good life. So I photographed a lot of these people, um, and I asked them a lot of these kinds of questions. And I felt like I could only engage in that kind of project or in that approach to this trail because I knew I was going to be solo.
Hmm.
I needed something to focus on
Yeah.
and to motivate me to, be really engaged with where I was. Because I think, it's easy to get to a point on a long trail where you're kind of bored, or you're kind of like, oh, I just want today to be done. No day did I feel that. No day was I kind of like, and a lot of it is paved, especially at the beginning, the first half, a lot of it is paved. But I knew all of this going into it. So I was kind of like, what's an intention? What's a motivation? What's a project or a purpose that will keep me really propelled, to keep going every day and really excited about what I was engaging in? And so, yeah. on that aspect of being a solo hiker, I didn't have the distraction of people.
It's
Well,
good sometimes.
people I could, yap with all
Well,
day,
then yeah, yeah,
but I could have the kind of, I guess, opportunity to talk with people I would meet, which I think, can forgo sometimes when you're with a group of people.
totally, 100%. Did you have a good level of conversational Japanese? Like, do you to be able to? Because I can't imagine there's a whole
I
lot of English, especially in the older population in these remote areas.
also, inaka, like countryside accents are and dialect is
Yeah,
so different from like Tokyo area. Japanese people who are from Tokyo have told me they can't even understand the grandmas and grandpas in these areas. So
I've heard that too. Yeah.
you know what? Like my Japanese is very subpar. I spent zero time studying. This is a flaw of mine. I was just very engaged in other activities. Yeah, I didn't prioritize studying Japanese. My comprehension became very high. I could speak very basic, but I had my script. I had my script and I had my translator,
Hmm.
and I did get frustrated with myself, kind of like, Elena, why didn't you spend more time studying? There, I mean, in a lot of ways, my Japanese level would have needed to be at least a couple years
Yeah.
higher in terms of like practice. But again, I just kind of rephrased it or repositioned it, looked at a different perspective, and kind of thinking, when you are speaking in a way where you're trying to translate with somebody, you speak in the most plain and clear language. And that can also create a beautiful kind of dialogue where you're just saying exactly what needs to be said. There is no fluff
Mm,
around it. And I think oftentimes with these older people who are answering my questions, they would try to do the same, speak in the most plain terms. And I think the essence of what they were saying would still be very clear. But yeah,
mm.
Google Translate helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's how I survived living in Japan, for sure. Do you have a couple of experiences with locals that really stand out to you? You know, the stories or the conversations that you had with one or two people?
Oh my gosh, there are countless. There are countless, and I think, yeah, like so many photographs of these older people too. But I was thinking a little bit about today. I also wrote every day. I wrote extensively every day, and I haven't looked over the journals though. Briefly, just before jumping on, I was like, oh, maybe I should just have a quick look at what my experiences were. But I looked at day one and I looked at the last day. I remember one of the days it was night one, and of course it's pouring down with rain. I'm in my tent, and there's all these stink bugs hanging around. I'm like eating my noodles. And I'm like, this is great, day one, solo camping in the rain. And the winds were picking up. My tent was not ready for it. It just so happened that this campground was kind of connected to the person lived where the campground was set up. And so I just hear like a little knock on my tent, and they're like, good evening. They translated the Japanese into English already, so they were reading off a script. Like, good evening.
With the Japanese
Would you,
accent.
yeah, would you like to come inside? And I was like, really? They're like, yeah, they were saying the wind's gonna pick up, it's gonna be really
Oh
rainy, please come
wow.
inside. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to. And I just opened this door to the most Ghibli style home you could ever imagine. The fireplace is roaring. There are like five cats. There are all these hammocks hung up, and this house is also a log cabin. And so it's got two layers to it, and I can see on
Wow.
the second layer there are more hammocks hanging up around there. And they're just like, come into my home, sleep here tonight. You'll be safe here. And it was
That's
just
special.
the most beautiful, wholesome beginning to my trail. And the next day, the woman, she owned, there was a couple, and the woman owned this garden center just very close by, and she took me up there, showed me all her flowers, and I don't know, it was just like this beautiful. yeah, wholesome experience. And flicking forward to the final day, I'm walking along the trail. There's been a 7.6 magnitude earthquake the night before.
Right.
I was in the region where it was intensity 6, which is 6 out of 7. So where you feel
Wow.
it the most. I had been sleeping essentially every night of the trail. You're along the coastline. You're sleeping along the coastline. For some miraculous reason, that exact night was the only night on trail where you're not on the coastline, where I slept up in this mountain hut. So it just loops. It takes you all the way in up a mountain, and you have the option to sleep in a hut. And I happened to be sleeping there that night. I did have a friend join me from Tokyo, so we were sleeping up there. Very intense. Everybody in the region was had tsunami evacuation. So if I'd been sleeping
Oof.
anywhere else that night, I would have had to evacuate, with
Wow.
everybody else at like, I think it was around 11:15 p.m. And so I've had this big shakeup. My friend ends up going back to Tokyo, and I'm walking my final day on trail. I'm walking along the coastline, which is, you know, they were warning people, or they were kind of advising people to stay away from the coastline, understandably so, because one earthquake that one big earthquake can trigger another one,
Yeah.
which is what happened in 2011. There was a 7.2, and then within 48 hours there was the big 9.1. So there's always, this fair. I had plans. I had options, opt out points, or somebody who could pick me up if something happened. Anyway, I was walking that day. There were not many people around. The winds were strong. I'm kind of feeling it. I'm feeling a bit of anxiety because there's a bit of high stress around what's been happening. And this couple pull over, and they just wind down the window, and they've got two warm balls of onigiri, so rice balls that were freshly made. They're just
Wow.
like, here, have this. You look like cold, and you look cold and a bit. Anyway, they were just like, we've made this for you. And I think they had seen me walk past their house and probably just seen my face, which
Wow.
is probably a little bit of struggle street. And they made this onigiri, drove back around to drop it off, and just bring this to me. And the thing is, I had so many of these kinds of encounters, but and it just goes to show, like, day one and final day 41. It was like that was throughout the whole trail, and that's just a testament to the kinds of people of this region, and just how warm and welcoming people are, despite the supposed stereotype of people in the colder regions, being a little bit colder. I didn't find that at all in Tohoku.
Wow.
Just so many wholesome interactions like that.
That's incredible. Japanese people are the nicest people in the world. I have so many stories of the generosity and kindness of just complete strangers in Japan as well. And I've just realized that Japanese trail magic is probably the best trail magic in the world. Like onigiri delivered to you on trail, like that is pretty much the dream.
Yes, and like freshly caught ikura, so like the salmon eggs, is that what it is? Just like freshly caught, whatever they'd caught, it was in it. And that's the other thing about this Tohoku region. There's like such a strong fishing culture. So yeah, I was given fresh oysters as well at one point. I
Wow.
remember being on this little island, and these three grandpas, three oji-san, were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, I'm walking this trail. I was explaining to them, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing now?" And I was like, "Oh, I've kind of finished for the day. I need to catch a ferry back." And I was like, "Do you guys know where the best?" This is in my also broken Japanese, but like, "Do you know where the best seafood is to eat?" And they're like, "Oh, jump in." I jumped in the back of this little truck, and I'm riding next to this like 70-something-year-old guy, and they take me to, yeah, the fresh, I guess, like oyster station where they're shucking it all. Um, Gave me fresh oysters, invited me back to one of the fishermen's houses. The wife cooked us all like a Japanese curry lunch, prepared the oysters. We all sat around, and I was like, nowhere else could I have this experience.
Yeah, that's extremely memorable. Yeah. Is there much awareness of the trail from locals along it? Like, do people know, oh, that's a Michinoku through hiker when they see you, or they're just like, is that I'm a homeless person? Let me give them some onigiri.
So I think a lot of the local businesses know that there's a Michinoku Trail. I think a lot of the locals still are a bit unaware. A lot of
Hmm.
them do think that you are a homeless person, therefore they feel very sorry for you. I was told that if you're wearing a backpack and walking, they just assume you are, yeah,
Down the luck a
without a
bit. Yeah,
home. Yeah,
yeah.
and they are going to help you out as much as possible. That same day that I was given the onigiri, somebody else tapped me on the shoulder and gave me a bag of donuts because they were just like,
Wow.
this poor girl, she's really she needs help. Why is she walking with this backpack? And they also assume you're a lot younger because they're kind of like, what, like, a woman in their right mind is doing this, like, with a backpack?
Mm,
Which I gladly took any compliment like this. But yeah, so
it's
the
tough when you get
awareness
30.
is, yeah, man, it's all feeling it in the joints. I didn't have you hit 30 yet? Probably not.
I'm 30 in like 2 months, so I'm
Oh,
almost there.
okay. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the awareness is not super strong, but I guess there are like a lot of Japanese hikers who do the Michinoku Trail in sections. They're often older
Mm,
and they just love this region. There's a lot of awareness about bears. So this season specifically, I guess this year, there's been a lot more talk about bears because it was the most attacks that has, I guess, since I don't know exactly the year, but the rise in bear attacks has increased
really?
exponentially in the
Wow.
northeastern region of Japan. But you know what? I mean, I don't know if it's down to my singing or just my high awareness of them. Probably my singing. I was singing a lot in the areas where I was like, this feels like bear country, especially when I would come across fresh bear poop, like a lot.
Oof. Did you see
Um,
any bears?
I didn't. I didn't see one bear. And again, I think that's down to my singing because
Hmm.
every time especially as a solo hiker, you are so much more aware that, you could encounter a bear.
Yeah.
Also, I was saying this because a lot of the locals would come out and warn me about the bears. Like the grandmas would come out of their homes, say, uh, "Kyoskete, kuma," and they'd always
Kuma.
ask me like,
Yeah.
yeah, they'd also always ask me like, "Hitori, hitori," and which means one person, singular
Hmm.
person. Hitori desu. Kyoskete. So they'd always be telling me that be careful of the bears. I had policemen pull over and tell me worry about the bears. I had construction workers ask me, where'd you come from? There was a bear there yesterday. I
Hmm.
had fishermen stop. People would stop in their cars. So everybody's aware of the bears. Maybe less so about Michinoku Trail, but they're very aware of the bears and they will warn
Yeah.
you incessantly about them. I will say, as long as you are vocal and aware, you're not going to come into trouble, as well as the rise in bear attacks was predominantly in towns. So out in nature, at least they're in their natural habitat and at least they
Yeah.
have food there. And you'll see signs of them everywhere, but like literal signs, but also, signs that they've been around. And I was definitely scared. I was definitely on edge a lot of the times. But after, the more I went through it, I was kind of like, I don't think they would actually hurt me because because they're kuma, very different to the higuma if you ever go to Hokkaido, which I did encounter in Hokkaido.
Oh.
Thought I was going to die. Those bears are very different. They're more like a grizzly. And those ones you should be very, very scared of.
I wasn't
But
aware of the
kuma,
hikama.
oh my goodness, me neither until I met one. And I was like, oh, you are not like the other bears. Yeah, they're in Hokkaido. Just,
Okay.
so yeah, different region.
It's good to know. When I think of Japanese trails, I think of two things. One is the trailhead will always have a sign that said there's probably a bear here somewhere. And then two, there's always going to be like 10 really old hikers with their bells on, and you'll hear them from a mile away. And I've never seen a bear out there either, but it's just like this overarching theme that, like, oh, there's bears out there, and everyone. I've had the locals warn me so many times as well, like, oh, there was a bear here at this time, and uh, yeah, people probably don't think about that when they think about Japan at all. Is like, oh, you might be attacked by a bear. It's interesting that there's been an increase in bear activity. I guess in towns that I guess becoming more comfortable maybe and venturing further in to built up areas or something, which is a little bit concerning.
It's also to do with the climate and them being unable to find enough food, so they're coming down to the towns.
Mm,
Yeah, which is a kind of scary thing. They had to get the Japanese army to head out and actually start killing the bears. It was a big. If you were in Japan this year, like you just would have had non-stop news about the bears.
mm,
Yeah, every day, and often older people who are out hunting for mushrooms or just walking around the neighborhood were being attacked. So it was pretty big, and I guess that's what also feeds into it, of people talking about it when it's in the news so
of course, yeah.
incessantly. Everybody,
It's just in the
seems to tell
air.
you about
Yeah.
it. But you
I
know what? I will say I did have a bear bell. I did have a bear bell.
Oh, you did have
And
one.
but
So the
you can
singing
mute
and the bell, no one was
you
going
can
near.
mute them. You can mute them. You can like put the little magnet on them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
which I would often do. I was just singing a lot. It was great. But I would forget that I'd sing a lot, and then next day I'd be like, "Why is my voice so raspy?"
Well, you weren't listening to music, so you had to make your own.
This is
Well,
true. This is true.
yeah, I hiked this trail, the Okuchichibu Grand Traverse, over 3 days, just west of Tokyo when I was there. Uh, yeah, in 2025, and I remember I got to the end of it near Okutama, and there were police everywhere, and I was like, "Oh, like what's going on here?" And I was trying to chat to them through Google Translate, and they were there for a bear sighting that was in the town, and I was like, "Oh wow!" Like I went trying to like kind of look for it because I hadn't seen one in Japan before, but
Mm.
I think it had just kind of been scared off. But yeah, it's an interesting reality. I was going to ask you about like the safety along the Michinoku Coastal Trail, and like bears are definitely a part of that. And I don't know, Japan's probably the most comfortable I've ever felt as far as like being safe everywhere you go compared to anywhere in the world. And you know, as a solo female hiker, there'll be questions like, "Oh, did you feel safe? How was Japan for safety?" Be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, yeah, like you said, in terms of people, it's the safest you'll ever feel. At no point do I feel like uneasy with people and interactions like that. Yeah, probably for like solo female hiker, it might be the most easy feel doing that kind of adventure. I will say, however, the natural elements of the trail feel a little bit greater. Like I had two tsunami warnings while I was walking the trail. I mean, this can happen in any capacity in any trail, but I think you become so much more aware of these kinds of things, of these greater natural disasters that can occur. Yeah, I guess like bigger risks like that were more prevalent, and were just, yeah, those kinds of thoughts were more prevalent for me, as well as the bears. Like those were kind of the things I felt were, yeah, my fears of the trail, just but more so as a solo hiker.
Yeah.
um yeah.
Yeah, earthquakes are just a reality in Japan. I mean, I was woken up multiple times when we lived in Tokyo to our apartment shaking, like things almost falling off
mm,
shelves. It just kind of happens. But I think the country and the infrastructure is more and more being geared towards dealing with those kinds of things. But I mean, I've never hiked a trail where like earthquakes and tsunamis are like a real danger. So that's an interesting thing, sort of hanging over your head while walking 1,000 kilometers.
yeah, I got caught out, not caught out exactly, but I was also, because I was hiking in winter, my daylight hours were very limited. So I kind of needed to maximize starting super early. I mean, not super, super early, but maybe starting by 6 or 7, and trying to get done by 4 p.m. because by 4
Hmm.
p.m., pitch black, no light. And
Yeah,
by that time, especially as a solo hiker, I did not want to be hiking with the bears. That's kind of the time that they're more likely to come out. And especially when you're walking through some, wilderness sections. But I got caught out one time when I was hiking past 5, which is far beyond my cutoff time for the day. But I also got on my phone. It was that evening where I got a tsunami alert, and I was walking literally on the coast. And I was like, okay, I need to get out of here. And that was the reminder of kind of like, it's always good to have an exit plan or somebody to contact, or just be aware of it, you know?
Sure. What is the percentage of like wilderness versus paved or built up trail on the Michinoku?
Hmm. So I think they say it's 70% paved, but I don't think it's that high. I think maybe they say 70% road, but roads not created equally. There are some roads that are like paved,
Yeah.
there are some that are wilderness roads. There are some that are old highways that have become more like overgrown trail, depending on which way you hike. So I went northbound. The maps are designed to go southbound, but my buddy Robin he'd gone northbound, and I was of a similar mindset with. I feel like the trail is kind of akin to Te Araroa in some ways, where the North Island section is more road. You are encountering more locals, more towns. You have more access to, I guess, like the daily life amenities.
Onigiri.
Um, the onigiri, the meat pies. Well, it wasn't even meat, but the pies in New Zealand. So the the Michinoku Trail has that, because I went from Soma, so I started from Fukushima and I went northbound. The first half is more so town, road, infrastructure. The
Hmm.
second half is where you enter the wilderness sections, where it does become a lot more wild. So you still can stay in accommodation potentially kind of every night if you want, but the days, like during the day, you'll be in complete remote areas where you're kind of like, oh, I don't have internet service, or oh, like I needed to make sure I was more prepared than previous days of encountering like 3 combini a day. So, and that's maybe more akin to not exactly the South Island of Te Araroa, but just that kind of mentality of the trail. I think it's like a combination of, I haven't done a Camino, but like, or a pilgrimage like that, but maybe a mix between a kind of pilgrimage and an aspect of being at like a wilderness trail, with always
Hmm.
having the opportunity to kind of opt out in a lot of ways.
It sounds incredible. It sounds amazing. I think I'll maybe hike it in the near future.
Mm,
I
would
just
love
like
to
the
see
idea
it.
of I love the idea of a 1,000 kilometer hike. It seems more accessible to just pop over for a month rather than committing to some 5 month expedition. But
Hmm.
obviously, just so in love with Japan. How many nights did you camp versus stayed, you know, in accommodation or huts or homes?
Hmm. I'm very embarrassed to admit this, because I camped far less than I thought I did. I carried my tent the whole time. I attribute it, this is me just making all my excuses. I attribute it to getting colder, and having the opportunity to stay in places.
If you
And
can
also
stay in a house, so why would you not?
prioritizing my writing and electronics and filming. Anyway, that aside, I think I camped like 5 times. And a couple times I did go to camp, I was invited into people's homes.
Yeah. Well, you tried to camp
And
the
then,
first night and got dragged into
yeah,
a house, so that probably just set
exactly.
the tone.
Exactly. And I was like, oh. And I think, and again, this was kind of saying before, is you have an idea of what a thru hike should look like in a lot of ways, especially doing a lot of wilderness trails. And I quickly understood and grasped that I didn't need to make Michinoku into this wilderness trail, because that's not what it was. It was asking to be something completely different. And I think, you can go into a trail or have an experience on a trail where you're kind of like, oh, this wasn't what I expected, and I feel disappointed. I think it's important to head into every single different through hike, expedition, trail, and just go on with a new mindset and understand that it will be different, and to lean into what the trail presents, because this trail is not a wilderness trail. And I think if you go into it with that mindset, you will be
Hmm.
disappointed. But if you
Yeah.
go into it with the mindset of kind of like, wow, what an incredible opportunity to interact with these older Japanese people with this, I feel like almost lost, forgotten kind of culture and history of Japan and the way maybe things used to be. What an incredible backdrop to have that kind of cultural experience with the element of the beautiful landscapes and the ocean, seeing the Pacific blue along the way, and these incredible,
Mm,
cliffs that they call the Alps of the sea. Yeah, there's just a lot of room for that, and it's important to, yeah, remember that. And I say that because I had to remind myself of that, a lot of the times
mhm.
where it's kind of
Yeah.
like, Elena, this isn't. You don't need to prove yourself in any way. Like, leave your ego at the door. This is what this trail is, and
Yeah.
just being open to it.
Yeah. Coming in with the right expectations to a long trail is super key. You know, you mentioned Camino just before, and I did my first Camino the French way last summer, Northern Hemisphere summer. And every hike I've ever done has been a wilderness trek, and I love being out in the wild so much. And so I was interested to see how I would enjoy a Camino where there is no wilderness. You're just walking from town to town along roads every day. And I was very intentional about setting my expectation for that adventure to be like, this is not a wilderness experience. This is a long hike, yes, but I'm here for the culture and the people and to build relationships and learn about some of the history and the spirituality of this walk. And I think because of that, it was one of my favorite walks I've ever done. It was so incredible. I loved it so much more than I knew I'd enjoy it, but I think beforehand I was like, this is going to be a great time with some good people, but I'm not going to like it as much as hiking through the Sierra Nevada or the South Island of New Zealand or something like that. But it was on par with all of those and it was just such a different experience, and that was a good thing. So yeah, the Michinoku Coastal Trail sounds very good. I think it's one of those hikes that my wife would actually be keen for because she's not a huge wilderness hiker, but she loved the Camino this past year. She loved the Kamanakoto, where it's more than just like roughing it and getting filthy and being in the dirt. It's like, no, there's a history here, there's people here, and it being in Japan would tempt her, I think, as well. So I'm excited for that. For those who are listening, I'm sure there's plenty who have just heard about this show for the first time. But do you have some advice for like someone who's like, okay, this sounds great. How would I start as far as like research, prepping, logistics for the Michinoku Coastal Trail?
Yeah, well,
That
just
website,
on that though.
probably a good
Yeah,
start.
yeah, the website. But just on that, I feel like that trail sounds like the perfect one for you to
Mm,
to do together.
yeah, I think
100%.
so.
Yeah, there's a website. There's a Michinoku Trail Club, I think, website. There are two. So there's one run by the Trail Association, and they have kind of like all the resources, the GPX. They've made it really English user friendly, which is perfect because it is hard to find a lot of the information sometimes for these trails in Japan. And then you can also, I think, purchase or download physical maps, which is also really helpful. They have like all the data point entries of kind of like where you can resupply, where you can eat food, where
Oh,
you
awesome.
can, where you can potentially camp. So, yeah, incredible resources that have been created and a lot of energy has been put into it. Then there's the other website, which was run by my buddy Robin. I think his one is like Michinoku Trail Walker. I think it's like the two websites that pop up when you start typing it in. And he's got all the information that's maybe more like personalized or personable for hikers in terms of like gear and what to expect and from a first person account. But yeah, I guess that's a good place to begin.
Wicked.
And yeah.
So can we expect a Michinoku film coming from Elina Osborne?
This is a good question. So, there'll be something. There'll be something. I filmed in a very different way. I really wanted to focus more on, or I ended up focusing much more on kind of photographing and writing. I had this real call to create something physical, and I don't know what that exactly looks like at this point, but there's been this kind of like just innate feeling of just creating something very tactile. So that's been there. But of course, I had to take my Sony A7S III. I had to take my video camera. I was like, I truly contemplated not bringing it, which is kind of crazy. But, of course, I brought it. So I filmed a lot, and there will be something. I don't know when or where because, I mean, I
I know
know
you
it
have a
will be
few
on my
big
YouTube.
projects in the
Yes.
work. Yeah.
The main thing is I don't know when, but things will, I think I'll trickle out some, maybe even just like some clips on my Instagram to begin with, and then eventually I'll cut something together that kind of encapsulates more of the experience. Yeah, because what a transformative kind of like time, or just almost paying homage to my experience in Japan. It was almost like a love letter to my time there. I might go back. I do have a visa that still allows me to live there. We'll see. But it was this really beautiful way to kind of understand more of the land, especially because I couldn't, for me, I, can't speak the language. So to be able to walk the land is another way to truly connect with a culture. And yes, what were you asking me about where you could see the film? Oh yeah, yeah, and just having other projects. Precisely. Hey Jude,
Yeah.
I'm still working on that film. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. Sounds like an incredible experience. So you've inspired me, and I'm sure many others. Appreciate you sharing that journey. I got one more question before we finish up. What is your favorite Studio Ghibli film?
Oh my goodness. I think it's always going to be Spirited Away. Like I feel like I think it wasn't the first one I saw, but I feel like that one just gets me every single time. I see myself in a different character every time. Soundtrack is incredible. It cuts me right in the
Mm,
heart.
that's beautiful.
Princess Mononoke is a close second, but yeah, those are my one and two. How about you?
Yeah, my wife has over the years got me into Studio Ghibli, and I've seen most of them at this point. My favorite is definitely My Neighbor Totoro.
Classic. Love it.
It's just a beautiful film, and the theme and the characters
It's pure
and just
joy.
the pure joy. That has to be my favorite. Yeah, but Princess Mononoke would probably be my second as well. Actually, it's just like it's a freaking adventure. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And just like way before its time, like
Hmm.
Miyazaki, just the way he's written. The thing I always have so much respect for with him is obviously his artistry and dedication. I don't know if you've seen Kingdom of Dreams and Madness, which is the documentary of
I
showing
haven't.
him
No.
and the process of him making his films. There's been a more recent one of like Miyazaki and the Heron, of making that the Heron film, but
Boy in the Moon, yeah.
um, his kind of his complete deep dives into how he makes films. But the thing I really truly respect about his films is like the way he's written female characters. There's nothing so assertive about making or like announcing or pronouncing that they're women, but they're just
Hmm.
innately these strong characters that happen to be
Yeah.
women, happen to be female, and I'm always like, this guy had it. And also obviously themes of climate and humans destroying the world, etc., in Princess Mononoke, which
Yeah.
you're like, wow, this was made in the 80s.
Hmm. He's an enigma. Yeah. We've been to the Studio Ghibli, like the studio itself, and also we went to the new theme park place when on
I've
our
heard
recent
mixed
trip.
reviews about that.
Parts of it are incredible. Parts of
Okay.
it are okay.
Mm-hmm.
um, but just that whole world is very cool. And yes, I've been indoctrinated over probably the last 15 years to like originally like, oh, it's anime. It's like for kids. I'm not watching that. And then the
Mm-hmm.
more films I see, the more I'm like, this is pretty special actually. Yeah, Karis, yeah, she loves those films. Well, thank you so much, Eleanor. Really, really appreciate you coming on and chatting trail and life. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, no. Love it every time. I'll be back anytime.
Absolutely. We'll make it happen. Where can people follow your journey in your adventures and your films and all that kind of stuff?
So I guess Instagram, I post sometimes. I'm more frequently when I'm doing a trail. YouTube very, very sporadically these days. I also have a Substack. Yeah, just I guess the place where I'm probably posting most frequently is Instagram at the moment.
Yeah, it was so cool seeing your every few days you'd post some stories about the Michinoku, and it was just really cool getting sort of a glimpse into it as you did it. But I'm sure whenever the film comes out, that'll be equally as special. So looking forward to it, and I'll leave all your links below so listeners can get there easily. But yeah, thanks for coming on. We'll chat very soon, and hopefully cross paths on a trail someday, because that'd be pretty
great,
cool.
Man. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for listening to this episode of Life Outside podcast. For those who are listening and enjoying the show, make sure to follow and subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating as well. It is much appreciated. Excited for 2026, and weekly episodes coming to you for the rest of this year. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.